And welcome to Bags and Boards. Coming up on tonight's show, we talk about Conan from Asmodee and run down all the games we played at the PhD Speed Gaming event. Plus news, new releases, games on Kickstarter, and more. What have you been playing? What games have we picked up lately? Find out tonight on Bags and Boards. And welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Lance McFarland here with D. Clark. D, how's everything going?
Going well, Lance. How are you?
Doing pretty good. It's been a while since we've been on the air.
It has.
It's been actually a really long time.
Well, scheduling's a hard thing to do sometimes, man.
Yeah, and at the end of the show, we'll kind of talk about the future of Bags and Boards. But for right now, we're going to talk about some cool games. We did a really cool thing. We went up to Dallas, went to this thing called Speed Gaming.
Yeah.
Where we got to sit down with a whole bunch of publishers and see some of their newer games, some of their upcoming games, things like that. Plus, we're going to talk about Conan from Asmodee editions. As you know, not my usual style of game.
Absolutely not.
But the theme, I'm a huge Conan fan, so I was really down to play it. If you don't know, Bags and Boards is a weekly board game review and discussion show here on KXTR 100.7 The Planet, covering everything in today's designer hobby board game world. We're on Twitter at Bags and Boards TX, at Facebook.com/Bags and Boards, and at bagsandboardstx@gmail.com. You can find all of this info at our SoundCloud page at soundcloud.com/Bags and Boards, plus all of our past reviews and interviews, and our RSS feed address, which allows you to add our podcast to any podcast catcher. But even better than that, just search for Bags and Boards on any of your podcast catchers like iTunes, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, any of that, and you'll find Bags and Boards. Subscribe, rate, review us, anything like that. Also, we're on the air every Wednesday at 6 and every Saturday and Sunday at 5 o'clock.
That's correct.
You can listen online by clicking Listen Live at kxtr.com, or every Thursday we upload the show to our podcast feed, so you can go over to iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts and listen there. So, D, we're going to come back. We got a lot of news to catch up on from the last, I'd say, 5 weeks or so. And then we're going to get into games that have come out recently. We're going to talk about games we've been playing, games we picked up, things like that. And then we'll get on to Conan and PhD Speed Gaming event. But before we do that, I want to tell everybody about Game and Movie Traders. We're brought to you by Game and Movie Traders. You can buy, sell, and trade both new and used video games for any console, DVDs and Blu-ray, and comic books. They also feature a selection of board and card games, including Magic the Gathering and other collectible card games. They're located at 2900 West Washington Street, Suite 60, right next door to the movie theater here in Stephenville, and can be reached by calling 965-GAME or online at facebook.com/GameandMovieTradersSville. We'll be right back.
Come join the Tarleton family as we bid farewell to Greg Ball after 27 years at the university with one final alumni jazz concert. The concert will be held in the Clyde H. Wells Fine Arts Center on April 29th. This is the last chance for Tarleton students to admire Greg Ball's musical gift with the Tarleton Jazz Ensemble. That's Saturday, April 29th in the Clyde H. Wells Fine Arts Building. For more information, contact the Department of Fine Arts at 254-968-9245.
Tarleton Radio is proudly supported by Cotton Patch Cafe in Stephenville. Wednesdays have several features, starting off with an onion string appetizer. For entree, Southern home-style chicken tenders, now in kick and honey or Southern buffalo flavors. Then Mama's butter cake for dessert, with the option of dine-in or take-out. Cotton Patch at 2860 West Washington can be reached at 254-965-5255. Cotton Patch Cafe, serving home-style meals to Texans for 25 years.
And welcome back to the show, everybody. Time to get into some of the news that's been going on over the last 4 or 5 weeks since we've been off the air. Hope everybody's been enjoying some of the repeats we've been playing lately, but time to get to some of the new stuff. D, first of all, USAopoly has announced a new expansion for the Harry Potter deck building game called the Monster Box of Monsters, an expansion that adds 150 new cards, a new character, which they haven't said who, but good chance it might be Luna Lovegood.
Seems reasonable. I could think of a couple others, but Luna makes as much sense as anybody, if not more so.
Yeah, for sure. And new wizard power, maybe the Patronus.
Maybe.
That would be cool. And breaking the rules of Hogwarts is a big part of this one. That's kind of the new mechanism in the game. So Our review of the Harry Potter game was very mixed, right? Like we
Yes,
had
it was.
a really great time, but overall as a game. So this expansion is like, my initial thought is, I really want to play it. But then I go, do I really want to play that game again?
I do.
I do too, kind of, I don't know. So anyway, that's coming out. I asked the guy from USAopoly. He definitely said like Gen Con. So we got quite a while before that comes out.
Yeah.
So Lookout Games is working on an expansion to Caverna, tentatively planned for the first half of 2018. This was actually a fan expansion that they've gone and said, hey, we want to make this, which is pretty cool. And you can actually go to BGG to the files section of Caverna and download this expansion right now for Caverna. It adds like a ton of races to the game.
All right.
So like where you are hill dwarves in Caverna, now you can play the game as elves or humans, and each one of those has different things associated with it that play into the game. So, D, last bit of news. I kept this for the last because I'm so excited about this. I've always wanted a reason to play the Legendary games, right?
Okay.
And I love Marvel.
You do.
But that wasn't enough to make me play another deck builder. And I like deck builders just fine.
Right.
My favorite thing in the world, but I like deck builders. And I love Marvel, but they're cooperative.
They are.
That just
They're pseudo co-op, which is my problem with them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, if you beat the game, then you establish a winner.
Oh, okay.
But if you lose, you all lose. The game
Gotcha.
wins, which is for me it's not my cup of tea. To me, that's bad game design.
Yeah.
It's just I don't like it.
So, I mean, those games are really popular, but there's been something holding me back from them. I just haven't gone out on a limb to, play them, right?
Right.
So now, coming out at Gen Con this year is Legendary Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So Buffy the Vampire Slayer is my favorite TV show of all time.
Sure.
I'm super excited about this. I mean, to play Buffy and Willow and Xander and the rest of the gang, super, super excited about this one. So they also announced Legendary Marvel Noir and Legendary X-Men releasing in June. So here's the difference, right? So this is a Legendary game. They also have the Legendary Encounters line of games.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
So that's where you get, I can't remember which one it is. So I know that the Alien and Predator games are Legendary Encounters.
Right.
The Marvel game is Legendary.
Yes.
With nothing
encountered.
There's also Big Trouble in Little China and Firefly. One of those is Legendary. One of them is a Legendary Encounters game. I don't remember which one. But people tend to like the Encounters games better.
Right. Which the only one that I've played is the Marvel, so I can't really speak to that in terms of, this set's definitely better or anything like that. But you're right. There's definitely a correlation.
Well, cool. Well, either way, I am excited about this game. Love Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I'm down to play any Buffy game. I will say Jasco Games has a Buffy game coming out.
Yes.
But after watching the video, it's not...
not looking so good for you?
I don't know. It might be a great game. But
Okay.
It didn't look like the kind of game I'm really that interested in.
That's fair.
But, which is unfortunate because Jasco Games has so many cool IP games coming out.
Yes, they do.
Dragon Ball Z, Street Fighter, and Mortal Kombat coming out.
I'm really excited for those.
I am too, as long as...
Just IP games have been
quality,
really good
right?
lately, so I'm mild. I guess not really excited. I'm mildly excited because I'm nervous about it also.
Yeah,
But
for sure. So we're going to get into the games we've been playing and picking up lately, but before we do, we're going to take a quick break. And before we go to break, Game and Movie Traders, located at 2900 West Washington Street, right next door to the movie theater in Stephenville, carries a selection of board and card games, including Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, and more. They also host groups and tournaments for all of these games, plus Dungeons & Dragons, Warhammer, and more. For more information, they can be reached at 965-GAME or at facebook.com/Game and Movie Traders Sville. And we will be right back.
Tarleton Radio is proudly supported by Cotton Patch Cafe in Stephenville. Wednesdays have several features, starting off with an onion string appetizer. For entree, Southern home-style chicken tenders, now in Kickin' Honey or Southern Buffalo flavors. Then Mama's Butter Cake for dessert, with the option of dine-in or take-out. Cotton Patch at 2860 West Washington can be reached at 254-965-5255. Cotton Patch Cafe, serving home-style meals to Texans for 25 years.
This year, firefighters will battle thousands of wildfires around the country in hopes of containing them. But a single ember that escapes can travel more than 1 mile, where it can ignite and destroy your home or community. You can't control where the ember will land, only what happens when it does. Prepare, protect, prevail. Get fire adapted. Learn simple steps you could take now to reduce wildfire damage later at fireadapted.org. A public service message brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council. Learn more at fireadapted.org.
All right, and welcome back to the show, everybody. Time to talk about the games we've been picking up lately and the games we've been playing lately. D, you play any cool games lately besides the ones we're going to talk about later?
Got a little bit of Blood Bowl in. Been doing some PC gaming, a few games of Munchkin. Got a game of Lords of Waterdeep.
Whoa. It's
been a pretty good, I realize it's been a while, but
yeah, man,
I've gotten some pretty good gaming in.
Yeah, for sure. We played Conan, right? We're going to talk about that later. I did get to play Codename Pictures on Easter Sunday with my family. And I got to say, I know you're not a big fan of Codename Pictures, but I just made a house rule that you couldn't say the thing that the picture obviously was.
Okay.
And it worked.
Right?
I could imagine that would be problematic, because then you start just going one by one and not trying to think outside the box, which is kind of the point of Codenames, is thinking outside the box.
Yes,
right?
completely.
So I just made that rule, and I really liked it, because I love that the pictures just have multiple things going on in them.
For sure.
So, and I really want to play where you play word, picture, word, picture, word, picture, you kind
that could be creative.
Mix them up. Yeah,
right.
For sure. Also, Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. I played this 4 times since I've got it. I played 4 of the 10 mysteries.
Okay.
Man, I am so into this game. I will say, if you don't like reading aloud, or you don't have anyone in your group or at home where you play games that likes reading aloud, this might not be the game for you, because there's a ton of reading.
Okay.
Because you have to read the mystery, and then every lead you choose, there's anywhere from a paragraph to a page of stuff to read.
Okay.
So it's all really interesting and fascinating, and you're discovering things about the mystery and the murder, and it's so awesome, man. So you read a mystery, and then you've got a directory that just has tons and tons of names in it, and they all correlate to a number and a letter.
Sure.
Right? So it might be 41 EC, which is the different sections on the map. And you have a big map of London, and then you flip that over, and you got a map of Whitechapel for the 4 Jack the Ripper cases.
Okay.
And you've got your directory, but also in the back, there's like a yellow pages almost. So like banks, hospitals, bars, restaurants, whatever. So they all have that same number letter correlation, right?
Okay.
So once you say, okay, they said something about taking him to the morgue, right? So we're going to go look at morgues and see which morgue is in the section of town that we know this is happening in. We find that morgue, we see like 81E, and we go to our casebook, look up 81E, and read the text of like what happened when we went and checked that out.
Okay.
And then what you're doing is Sherlock Holmes always scores 100. We're trying to get enough information that we think we can answer the questions that they're going to ask us about the case.
Right.
But not get, because you could just end up reading the entire book and know all the answers, right?
Sure.
So you're trying to not get so much that Sherlock Holmes, it tells you how many leads he used to solve the case. Any amount you go over that, you lose 5 points for each.
Okay.
So you're trying to get that perfect number to where you got enough to answer the questions, but not so much that you're going to lose a ton of points, right?
Makes sense.
So super fun game. I'm definitely 100% picking up this other one when I'm done.
Okay.
Because the way I'm going through these, it's not like I'm going to be done in a month, but like by the time this other one comes out, I'll be ready for more.
Okay.
And man, I know that once I'm done with those, I bet there's fan cases online.
Probably.
So really excited about that. Really love Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. Games we picked up lately. D, you come across any games lately?
I actually haven't picked up anything that we're not going to talk about. So.
Oh yeah, that's true too.
Yeah. Unfortunately, no.
So I got Codename Pictures,
yes,
right? And Adrenaline from CGE.
Okay.
We're really excited to play Adrenaline. Adrenaline's such an interesting game because it's a Euro game about first-person shooters.
Right.
Which you would almost instantly go, I bet that's an Ameritrash game, right?
You would think so.
So really excited about Adrenaline. And that's pretty much all the games we picked up that, like you said, we're not going to talk about later. We're going to take another quick break, and when we come back, we'll be talking about Conan from Asmodee Editions. But before we take a break, Circle A Skate Shop is located inside Game and Movie Traders in Stephenville, next door to the movie theater. They offer skateboards and longboards and carry accessories, including trucks, wheels, skate videos, and more. Information at 965-GAME or by searching Circle A Skate Shop, Stephenville on Facebook. And we will be right back. KXTR 100.7 The Planet is proud to announce the opening of Texan Tattoo at 1280 West Washington Street, directly across from the Tarleton campus. Texan Tattoo offers Tarleton students and Stephenville residents a variety of services to meet their tattoo or body piercing needs. Artists' work can be found online at facebook.com/TexanTattoo. Walk-ins are welcome and appointments can be made by calling 254-968-0050. All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. It's time to talk about Conan. I think all the plays we got of this were, well, some 5, some 4-player.
Yes.
And that's including the Game Master.
Correct.
So as far as the players go, 3 and 4 players, right?
Yes.
So we never got to try the 1 versus 1 version or the just 2 versus 1 versions. But we did get to try the higher player counts, right?
Yes, we did.
And these games are more meant for higher player counts.
As a rule, I would say so.
I will say, though, that, Star Wars Imperial Assault kind of proved that rule wrong by, in the box, also including rules for a tactical game, a 1 versus 1 tactical game.
Right.
And the reskin of this game that's coming out, I think, later this year, which is a Batman reskin of this game, is going to include rules for a 1 versus 1 tactical game.
Okay.
Just like the Imperial Assault did.
I think you can make these games, this genre of games, 1 versus all, you can make them as a more tactical game with fewer players. But I would continue to argue that as a rule, like if you don't know about it going in, you just pick one up at random.
Yeah.
You're going to pick one up that's designed for more players.
Oh yeah, for sure. Your Descent, your Arcadia quests, your
your Super Dungeon Explorers, all those.
Yeah. So this game is published by Asmodee Editions and designed by Frederick Henry, a French designer. So I'm sure I'm pronouncing his name wrong, but
Henry.
Also, on the credits, it says Antoine Bauza and Bruno Cathala, which are 2 big-name designers.
Yes.
I don't know how much they had in the design of this game. I did hear something really cool on the Dice Towers podcast about how this game had a ton of input from just gamers.
Right.
Like the designer called out for people that wanted to help with the game, and it actually kickstarted people's careers in the board game industry,
which is really cool.
Yeah, like a guy that helped with the Kickstarter for this game just because he emailed them and said, "Hey, I'd like to help you with the Kickstarter," now has a career running Kickstarters for board game publishers.
Hey,
pretty cool.
That's really awesome.
Yeah, so this is unlike a lot of Conan stuff, which is more based on ancillary stuff like the Conan movies or the comics or whatever.
Right.
This is 100% based on the Robert E. Howard stories, to the point where they actually hired somebody to make sure that this game followed Robert E. Howard's vision of Conan the Barbarian.
Correct.
Awesome. And I'm a big fan. I've read a lot of the Robert E. Howard stuff. I've been to Robert E. Howard days and Cross Plains.
Yes.
I've read tons of Conan comics. I'm a big Conan fan, right? So this is a 1 versus all game, like we said, with 4 different maps. And we'll talk about the maps later, but multiple scenarios in the main rule book that each play a different number of players. I think they all play all the player counts, but they're suggested for a certain number of players. Is that right, or am I wrong?
There are scenarios that will only play with a certain number of players. You can,
but that's right on some of the scenarios.
Yeah,
right?
you can increase the difficulty by the 4 or 5 player scenarios, playing them with less people. You're just making it harder for the players, is what you're doing. No big deal. The smaller scenarios that are designed for 2 adventurers, there's literally nothing in there for, hey, put another adventurer in there.
Oh,
there's no scaling. There's nothing of that sort whatsoever.
So if you did, it would just be way too easy.
Yes.
For the players.
Yes.
So, and I think this is actually my first 1 versus all game to play, and I gotta say, I finally came to the realization the other day that this isn't like a Dungeons and Dragons dungeon master. Like the other person's an actual player in the game. Like he's actually trying to win.
Yeah, you and I had that conversation in the car.
Not just make sure we're having fun.
Right.
Yeah. So let's see. Players can play as Conan, Shevatus the Thief, Hadrathus the Sorcerer, and Belit the Pirate Queen. Other characters available through expansions, and also the Kickstarter version had more characters.
Yes.
Which, man, makes me wish I had gotten that. You know what I mean? Each scenario is set up with the scenario book, and players are given win and loss conditions, such as kill these 2 specific characters and find this artifact, or you lose if one of your party dies before this certain turn, things like that.
Right.
Heroes are given certain starting equipment, but can find more items and spells by searching through treasure chests. So each player has a player board.
Correct.
And on that player board is going to be 3 square sections at the bottom. One is your active gems, one is your used gems, and one is your health. So they're going to move across those, right? So when I each person starts out with a certain amount of gems. When I decide to do an action, I commit a certain number of gems to that. Right?
Correct.
So we do the actions. At the end of the player's turns, we move all those down to our used box down at the bottom. And then once we do defense, we move all those down to our used box at the bottom. And then a certain amount are going to move back over. Over on the right side of the board, you have engaged or aggressive and passive,
yes.
right? So if you move your character down to passive, you can move more gems back over to your active side to
Correct.
be able to use more the next turn, but you're going to be able to use only a certain amount the next turn. Whereas if you're in the aggressive category, you can use as much as you want. So there's a really nice balance there of, you can move more back over, but you're going to be able to use fewer. So you really have to, unlike a lot of, more American style board games I played, there's a lot of future planning where you're saying, I'm going to get these moved back over now. So in 3 turns, once I move back to aggressive, I can really use them and like go after this one thing because I plan on moving over here and doing this.
Right.
There's a lot of future planning where I haven't seen that a lot in like, say, the Magic the Gathering board game that I played, things like that.
Correct. I would agree with that completely.
Which is all like, oh, this is what I'm doing, roll the dice, the turn's done.
Right.
So what happens when you get hit, when you take a wound, you move them over to the third box, and those don't move back over except with like healing potions and stuff like that.
Right.
And then if you lose all your gems to over there, which does happen, it happened in both of our games.
Yep.
You're dead. You're dead. So let's see. What else is on the player board? You've got all the actions. You've got melee. You've got long range combat. You've got defense. You've got movement. You've got a reroll thing where you can commit gems to be able to reroll your dice.
Yes.
And then you've got a kind of like a manipulation.
Yeah, which is basically your catch-all for doing non-combat things. Picking locks on treasure chests is manipulation. Climbing is manipulation. Throwing potions and items to people who are not right next to you is a manipulation.
Gotcha.
Basically it's your catch-all for everything else.
Yeah, and then each of the characters also has certain things that they're better at, that they get pluses to, things like that.
Correct.
It's lined out as symbols on your player board, but then there's like 4 sheets that run all those down, right?
Correct.
And we never really got a chance to use much of that. I will say I played Conan every time we played, and the one I got to use a lot was Cleave. It's not called Cleave. It's called Circular Strike.
Circular Strike.
And that's pretty much Cleave from Dungeons & Dragons, where if every bit of damage I do over what it took to kill this guy goes to the next guy, to the next guy, to the next guy. And you can really take out a group of like 5 people in one swing.
Conan kills large numbers of people in single attacks, which, totally flavorful. That's what Conan does.
And I think this is why I love Conan and what made me have fun playing him in this game, because in D&D, I always play a barbarian. I know it's boring. It's just my favorite thing to play. And Cleave was one of my favorite things ever. So I loved that he pretty much had Cleave, So anyway, that's the player board. Dee, you tell us about the kind of game I forget what he's called, the Overlord.
The Overlord.
Tell us about what his player board's like, because there's some really interesting stuff going on that board.
Yeah, so the Overlord has, let me just go from the top down here. The Overlord up top has a spot that says how many gems you recover each turn, which varies from scenario to scenario. And then underneath that, you've got 2 large areas. One is green, one is red, and that's active gems and used gems. Being the Overlord personally doesn't have any health, so you don't have that third box that the players do. But you've got used and available, and those go bouncing back and forth. But unlike the players who have aggressive and normal stances, the Overlord you get this many gems back every turn, end of story. And then under that, you've got 8 slots. They're numbered 1 through 8 from left to right. And you have a large slidable tray where you put your unit indicators. Each game has up to 7 units and then a reinforcement tile. And basically, you pay in gems whatever slot they are in. So if you're activating the unit in slot 1, you pay 1 gem, and that unit gets to do all of its stuff. 2 is 2, 3 is 3, so on and so forth. You want to activate that guy that you just activated, it's usually really expensive.
Yeah.
It's not something you get to do very often. But whenever you activate a unit, you take it out, you slide everybody else down 1, and that unit that just activated goes into the 8 spot. So you have to manage your gems relatively efficiently and keep everybody rotating, or else you have to pay through the nose to activate somebody, more than once.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a really cool mechanism.
It's a great mechanism. It forces the DM, the Overlord, the whatever you want to call that role, to use everybody. And it also puts the Overlord at a disadvantage because whenever a unit is wiped, that tile doesn't leave. It just gets turned over and it's got a bloody side on the backside as a reminder, hey, this unit's dead. And you don't want to activate the dead unit because it's dead, but at the same time, if you want to get it out of the way, because sooner or later they just start clogging up the cheap end of your board, and you've got to activate them to get them out of the way.
Yeah.
You can bring them back from the dead effectively with the reinforcement tile. Reinforcement takes guys that have been removed for play for whatever reason, doesn't matter, and puts them back onto the board. And there is a cost associated with each unit, depending on how strong the unit is. And your special characters, your guys that are typically goals for the players, are not revivable.
Yeah, yeah.
They killed the sorcerer that they had to kill to win the game. No, you don't get to bring in another sorcerer.
Yeah, that's true.
But your mooks, you just throw wave after wave of them at them, assuming you manage it correctly.
Yeah, and that was kind of like my first one of my issues with the game is that I mean, I know you've got to have that to have like any chance,
right?
Because otherwise, Conan and a couple other characters having a couple good turns kind of just wipe through everybody in like end of game.
Yeah.
But it really kind of makes the game long sometimes, You're like, okay, we're getting closer to the guy. We're about to be there. Okay, another giant group of things.
Here's a wall of enemies
that we have to use a whole turn to get through.
You're right.
But I guess that's just kind of the point of these games.
Yeah,
right?
because the scenarios that we played were both timed.
Yeah.
If you did not complete the objectives by the time limit, terrible things happened. One of them was just straight up you lose the game. The other one, it was potentially possible to get a draw due to lack of time.
Yeah.
But running out of time carried bad consequences. Like, if nothing else, you don't win.
Yeah, that's true. So that's pretty much the game. No, this is a miniatures game, so there's a ton of miniatures.
Probably somewhere between 60 and 75 miniatures.
Yeah, and I'm not an expert on miniatures, but they all look nice to me.
Yeah, I thought they were solid minis.
Yeah.
It was nice of them. So with most minis games, they come in grayscale. They come in just colored plastic. It was nice of them to use different colored plastic for the PCs and the allies from the monsters.
Yeah.
So you don't have to paint these guys up. You don't have to put special markings on them. You just look and go, okay, those are the good guys. These are the bad guys.
Yeah, that's true.
And you can go from there.
Yeah, and most of the miniatures are like a ton of skeletons, a ton of this creature, a ton of archers, whatever. But there are some really cool looking monsters and priests and things like that. There's a giant snake.
Giant snake looks awesome.
Yeah, and he was very hard to beat as well.
Yes, he was.
And he does look really cool. And just like most games like this, there's a ton of expansions.
Right.
I mean, in pretty much every expansion you buy, they're like smaller expansions where it's like this unit or this one monster with the cards that you need for that monster.
Precisely.
So if you really wanted to get into a game like this, you can drop a lot of money on something like this.
You could.
I mean, if you don't want to just keep playing the base game stuff, like if you played this 20 times and wanted to play more,
right,
that's when you'd start getting into the, okay, I'm going to buy this unit that comes with this scenario, things like that.
Right.
Overall, I enjoyed, that's pretty much the whole Game Master board, right?
That is pretty much the whole Game Master board. It gives like I said, a decent amount of strategy is involved on part of the Overlord. It is not your typical one versus all game, because your typical one versus all game, all the monsters that are left on the Overlord's turn, everybody who's still alive, they get to do stuff. And that's not necessarily the case with Conan.
Yeah.
There were a couple of times where I found myself wanting for gems.
Yeah.
Which made life very difficult.
Yeah, and I would say overall, like, I had a good time playing this game. it's not my kind of game for a reason.
Right.
And I probably won't ever play it again, but I did really enjoy the game. If I just want to get some good Conan flavor, I'd probably play it again.
Right.
But yeah, it's this particular one, from what I've seen from other games like this, this one had some really cool stuff going on. I really like the way the gems flowed on the player boards.
Right.
You know, like having to really manage how many I get back versus how many I use, because you really stop yourself from just going all out.
Yes.
Because you're like, I've got to save some of this for defense.
If I go all out this turn, I'm going to have literally nothing to do next turn except stand here and be a target.
Yeah, for sure. And I will say that, you know, a lot of the problems with American-style board games for me are just like the overwhelming amount of luck in the games. There was a good bit of ways to mitigate the luck in this game, right? So there's a lot of the symbols on your item cards let you re-roll a certain die or two. And then there's also the re-roll spot on the player boards, which we never use for some reason. But
None of you used it, and I was not about to point it out and be like, hey, guys, why don't you re-roll that terrible roll that otherwise would probably kill the boss of the encounter?
It's very true. I don't know why we didn't, but next time, if we played again, we would. But that thing on the Game Master board seemed really cool too. The sliding back and forth.
It was.
It's a really interesting way to do that. What a cool idea the designer had as a way to activate the monsters and stuff.
It was very interesting. Like I said, it made me use everybody, and yet at the same time kept me from using everybody, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Which was pretty interesting. I had some serious problems with this game from the Overlord's perspective. And we've touched on that a little bit in terms of waves of monsters. If I, as the Overlord, were only left with the guys on the board at the start of the game, this is a 3-turn game, and I have no chance of winning at any point in time.
Yeah.
You know, Conan, I think you literally killed 6 people in one turn.
Yeah.
One time. And you were not the only one to do ridiculous things like that.
Yeah.
The mage, the first time we played, I think he killed 11 people the first time. Oh, you know, here's a giant mall. There's a bunch of enemies here, and he has a spell that only targets enemies, and just here's a point of damage to all the mooks. How many points of damage does it take to kill a mook? Oh wait, 1.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I'm done here.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Luckily, you have the thing to be able to bring them back.
That's true.
I mean, that doesn't really, it's not really as big of a problem since you are able to bring them back, right? You can't bring them back all really quickly because that one thing that lets you bring them back goes all the way
back.
Costs 8 gems, you know. So overall, the game has some really interesting mechanisms for a game like this. It's not my kind of game, but I would say if you like this kind of game, it's not a bad one, especially if you like the theme. If you like Conan, this is dripping with Conan theme, you know.
I do agree that it's dripping with Conan theme. I'm going to disagree with you on whether you should get this game or not. As a guy who's played several 1 versus all games and owns a couple of 1 versus all games, this thing has no spot in my library. The Overlord only has one way to win, and that's by dragging this thing out into super deep water by just swarming and swarming and swarming and making the game last forever. It's advertised as a 90-minute game, but if the Overlord wins, there's no way that this is happening in 90 minutes. This is a 2 to 3 hour game if the Overlord wins. It's super fidgety, super fiddly, lots and lots of pieces. It took me 30 to 45 minutes to set up each time that we played.
That's true.
And I'm saying that again as a guy who's used to setting up these 1 versus all games that, you know, this is not my first rodeo setting up that type of game, and it took me forever to set up.
I mean, think about this, though. For you to win, you have to drag the game out really far. But your one objective was to kill Baylit, and you never went after Baylit.
I never had a chance to get after Baylit was the problem.
I mean, because you could have leapt across the ship as well and gone over to that side. And
the difference is that if the PCs jump from ship to ship in the game that I won, it was a 2 ship battle. Baylit's ship had been attacked while it was in harbor. If my guys jump across the ship and they fail, they die.
Oh yeah.
If the PCs jump across the ship and they fail, they just don't jump. And I was not willing to risk what was at that point in time, early in the game, a very limited number of pieces to jump across the ship and know that I'm going to lose a chunk of these guys.
So, yeah, from zero experience, it was a fun game.
Right.
I never really want to play the game master side anyway. So
right.
I could imagine that would be problematic, but that's not something I would ever play in a game like this. Component-wise, the miniatures seem just fine.
The miniatures are good. The pieces, like I said, there are a million pieces in this box, but they are really well made. They're solid pieces. If you take care of your games, this game will last you a long time.
Yeah, for sure. And the artwork is
really top
solid.
notch. Agreed.
The boards, there's 2 boards, and they're both double-sided.
Right.
So there's 4 different maps, essentially, for you to play on. And the one with the 2 ships side by side on it is one of the coolest-looking game boards I've ever seen. It's really awesome.
The castle board is not bad. It's a castle.
Yeah.
It's a top-down castle. I really liked the Pict Village.
Yeah.
With the walls that you can climb up and down, and the different barriers that Conan, in theory, could go destroy them and make extra avenues and things like that. But you're right. That ship versus ship board with the sharks swimming around and jumping up out of the water is gorgeous.
It's a very nice looking game. And it's a very big game. So a storage space is an issue for you.
It's a big box, and it is a heavy box. It goes thunk.
So that's how the game plays. Those are our thoughts on the game. From D, I'm guessing no recommend.
No, I would not recommend this. If I was going to give this a letter grade, probably a D+.
Okay. For me, I would say I had a good time with it. If this is your style of game, at least check it out.
One thing that I find interesting, because after our last playthrough, we immediately discussed our overall thoughts on the game. And I thought at that point in time that it wasn't a bad game. That there are a lot of really good pieces, and they were nothing more than the sum of their parts. But it wasn't a bad game.
Sure.
And you were pretty down on the game, it seemed like to me. And the more we've gotten some time away from it and given our own private thoughts to it, and it seems like we've kind of switched roles almost.
Well, here's the thing: is I'm down on this kind of game.
Right. That's fair.
I wish I would be fine if they didn't exist at all. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm trying to come at it from the perspective of I played it. So what if I liked these kind of games? What would I think about this game?
That's fair.
You know what I mean? And in that perspective, I had a good time. But I also got to play Conan, and I would say some of the other players didn't fare as well as I did because they didn't get to roll 12 dice at a time. You know what I mean? But in that situation, I guess you just have to start figuring out how to be more how to really play your type of character's strengths. You know what I mean? So anyway, those are our thoughts on Conan from Asmodee. And when we come back, we're talking about PhD's speed gaming event in Dallas from last week, all the games we played there, and just about the event overall. And we will be right back. But before we go to break, Game and Movie Traders brings you bags and boards every week. And Game and Movie Traders is located at 2900 West Washington Street. And they do buy, sell, and trade for both new and used video games. They offer both new and classic video games for all systems, including PS4, Xbox One, as well as Nintendo, Sega Genesis, and all consoles in between. Information at 965Game or at facebook.com/Game and Movie Traders Sville. And we'll be right back.
100.7 KXTR The Planet is brought to you in part by Videos and More, located at 931 West Washington Street in Stephenville. Videos and More offers a variety of movies and video games for sale or rent, and also has a large option of select knives and other oddities in stock. For more information on Videos and More and their possibilities for Tarleton students and faculty, the store can be reached at 254-413-4734.
You can't miss Cruising the Planet. We've got hard-hitting questions,
How long can the koalas hold food in their stomach?
musical performances,
Don't stop, make it pop, DJ blow my speakers up. Tonight I'ma fight till we see the sunlight.
the award-winning Cruising the Planet.
Who was the idiot that gave you that award?
You.
Every Wednesday from 10 to 12 and Thursdays 4 to 6 on KXTR The Planet.
All right, and welcome back to the show. Time to talk about the speed gaming event put on by PhD, which is a board game distributor.
Yes. Major player in that industry, by the way.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so this was in Dallas at the Wyndham Suites Hotel.
Yes, it was.
I think we were close to the airport.
Yes, we were very close to the airport.
In the vicinity, at least. So we're just going to run down the games that we got to play. There were a couple of cool, just kind of, everyone meet and greet everybody, things like that.
Right.
But overall, as far as the games we played, got a demo or a bunch of publishers there. So kind of the theme of the event was on the actual day, you sit down for 20 minutes with each publisher, you and a few other people, and then you just go table to table. They show you their new stuff.
And a lot of these were previews of games that were not out yet.
Yeah.
We saw a lot of, this is a box that we're holding the stuff in, and we've kind of got it mocked up to look like this, but none of this is final yet.
Yeah, for sure.
We played with a lot of plain white pieces and things like that because they're like, this game is we're still putting finishing touches on it. We're not entirely sure how we're going to go about the following 3 things yet.
Yeah, and one thing I did see that was pretty cool is like how much 3D printing has made demo copies look cool.
Yes.
So anyway, let's talk. Got a demo the night before the big event of Unlock, which is a new kind of app run escape room game,
which was cool
from Asmodee. Yeah, really cool looking. It was a very tiny demo, right? But I really am just excited about these games.
Right.
Unlock and Exit, which is coming out from Thames and Cosmos. Roadhog, we got to play a game called Roadhog.
We did.
And if you remember our review here on the show of the Next Great American Game documentary, it's that game that this guy's trying to sell in that documentary. 100% not a game I liked at all.
It is very much a screw your neighbor game, which is absolutely not your cup of tea.
Yeah.
I was fine with it because I'm okay with screwing my neighbor.
Yeah.
It was pretty simple, straightforward, not a terribly difficult game to play.
Yeah.
If you're looking for something big and meaty, go elsewhere. But
for sure,
it was a perfectly fine time filler game for me. I mean, it took half an hour top. Actually, we played that whole game in 20 minutes because that was during the speed gaming. So yeah.
If you it was the night before.
Was it the night before? Okay.
And if you like kind of take that games, check it out.
Sure,
right?
check it out.
So we also that night played Sensei's Path, the expansion for Onitama. We just got to use a few of the cards, but they look fine. There seems to be a lot more jumping around stuff, a lot more movement, forward movement.
If you play Onitama or you like Onitama, I recommend whenever that comes out. It's due out, I think, next month, maybe 2 months.
Very soon, yeah.
Yeah, but soon.
It's just
go get it.
16 cards.
Yeah, it doubles your potential for cards in the game.
Yeah, it's a really small expansion, and it's just new cards. But if you like Onitama and play it a lot and want some variety, check it out. So the actual speed gaming event, the first game we played was Battle Kittens, coming out from Ultra Pro. That was a perfectly fine little game. I mean, it was kind of interesting how you are trying. It kind of like Smash Up, how sometimes second place gets the most points.
Oh, it drove me insane.
It had that thing going on.
That thing drives me insane.
I kind of like that because, as we're sitting there, me and Dee had to team up on this one. We're going, okay, we're going to commit this many of this type of cat to this one because we think that might be a good second place score. You
right.
know? I kind of like that. It's not a game I'm ever going to play ever again.
Right.
But if you like nice, just simple games, it wasn't a bad one. Some of these we got such a small look at it that you can't really take our word for whether it's good or not.
And yeah, I'm definitely not giving a firm thumbs up, thumbs down on any of these.
For sure.
This is just like we said, it was 20 minutes go, and at 0, you better have your stuff ready to move to the next table because it's going.
And this one was especially, it was the very first one, so he was not set up or ready to go, so we barely got any of this. He was supposed to show us a second game that did not happen.
And it did not happen.
And we played Hot Shots. I really enjoyed Hot Shots.
Yes.
It was actually one of my favorite games that we played there.
It was a great game.
There's actually a lot of depth to it. For Fireside, it was a little deeper than the typical Fireside game, I would say.
I would agree with that for sure.
And had a lot of fun with that. It's you're fighting forest fires, and each person has a certain power. The cool thing is if you're near a lake or if you have one of your teammates with you, it's cooperative. You get extra boosts to fighting the fire, stuff like that.
Yep.
We played Spoils of War, which is a Viking game from Arcane Wonders. Oh, the Hot Shots game. The cool thing about that is it used like a Farkle mechanism.
Yes.
Which I really enjoyed. Spoils of War was kind of similar because it used Liar's Dice. That's kind of the main mechanism for it. It's a bidding game where you play Liar's Dice and then you bid on whether you think the bust is going to happen or not. Once someone says, no, that's not true, you're a liar, then everyone bids on whether you think that's going to be, whether the person was lying or not. A pretty cool game.
Yeah, I mean, it was a variation on Liar's Dice. If you're a Liar's Dice fan, you will love this game.
Yeah, for sure. Attack on Titan, played that game. That was actually like pretty cool looking. Didn't get to play much of it, but it looked really cool because it's got all these cool 3D elements. There's an actual Titan there, and with like places to put your character on him, like you're climbing up him.
Right.
And then there's buildings that you get on and fire cannons at the Titans. Really cool.
It was. There was an entire I didn't get to really handle it, but it looked like a solid tower.
Yeah.
With these cool wooden cannon meeples. I don't know what you call a cannon meeple, but it's obvious wooden cutout of a cannon, and the Titan goes around and smashes them down and then injures people, and you're trying to either jump around on him and kill him or fire the cannons off and kill him.
Yeah. And it was a 1 versus all game.
It was.
Well.
Very much so.
Yeah, it looked interesting. Rune Wars. This was a big, huge miniatures game. This is big, epic-looking miniatures. I actually thought this looked really fun, right?
Okay.
It's weird. I haven't ever had any interest in playing those miniatures combat games.
Right.
But I like war games. And those are just fantasy war games.
You're right. That's all miniatures, miniatures war games and for lack of the Commands and Colors war games. Mm-hmm. There's really only 1 or 2 steps in between these two games.
Yeah, for sure. The thing here is putting the miniatures together, painting them, stuff like that.
Right.
That's kind of the holdback. But I looked at the price of this today. It's somewhere around $100.
For a 2-player starter, that's not that bad for a war game.
Yeah, and there's big, nice-looking miniatures in this thing. So if you're looking for a really cool fantasy miniatures game, the cool thing about this one is it does skew towards the side of a board game. So if you're a board gamer kind of wanting to get into miniatures games,
it's a good entry point.
Yeah, and they also said, which I feel like a miniatures gamer would be like, why is that important? But I thought it was really important that all the stuff fits back in the box even after it's put together.
Absolutely.
Because if you're a board gamer, you're not thinking about displaying miniatures and stuff. You want the stuff to go back in the box. You
right.
Put it on the shelf. Rune Wars I thought was really cool coming out from Asmodee. I guess it's technically Fantasy Flight, but
yeah,
which is Asmodee. So next, we got to do this cool little thing with Magic the Gathering, where they gave us 3 booster packs and we got to build a deck.
Yes.
I thought that was pretty cool.
I thought it was great.
I apparently got a good card out of there.
You did. It was what the thing was pitching their new sealed league format.
Yeah.
Which is designed for super casual new players. And the way the sealed league works is everybody starts with 3 packs, and you play a tournament. And everybody who finishes 1 and 2 or worse in the tournament, because ideally you do 8-man leagues, so each tournament will be 3 rounds.
Yeah.
Everybody who does 1 and 2 or worse, now if they want it, they're eligible to go get another pack and add to their pool.
Yeah, for sure.
Which then makes their deck better, so then they start climbing back up, and ideally it will mix and rotate. Who does well and who does bad.
And you kind of realize the actual validity of making a deck out of 3 booster packs.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool.
I mean, you only had to build a 30-card deck. It's not bad. It wasn't bad at all.
So we played Quests of Valeria.
Sure.
One of the 3 Valeria games. I thought it was pretty cool. It's supposed to be he even told me later on in the day that they're kind of doing something similar to the Tiny Epic line.
Yes.
So you could call this Tiny Epic Lords of Waterdeep. You know what I mean?
Kind of, sort of.
So it was pretty cool. I didn't really understand what was going on at first because at this point we've learned the rules to 20 games.
Yeah, I mean this was late in the day. You're not literally we're somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 games at this point.
Yeah,
and we're getting shotgunned rules every 20 minutes.
Yeah,
and it just your brain just starts to melt by the end of
it
it.
starts to blur after a while. But once I started picking it up, I thought it was pretty cool.
Sure.
The next game that we played, and I want to play the other Valeria games, Villages of Valeria and Valeria Card Kingdoms.
Me too, actually.
Yeah, I'm really interested in those. And these are the same size, except for Card Kingdoms. The other two are the same size box as the Tiny Epic Galaxies games.
Right.
So, like, between Valeria and Tiny Epic, you could have a really varied collection of games that take up very little space.
Agreed.
And with a lot of variation and depth as well, you know. So next we played a game that I thought was shockingly fun for how like simple it was, which was the Guardians of the Galaxy. It was called the something mixtape. I can't remember the name.
Awesome mix something. I don't remember. It was
I
a
thought it was
Guardians of
really
the Galaxy
fun.
card game.
Yeah.
And it was straight up a variation of the game called Screw Your Neighbor, the old card game that people play and bet dollars on or
that's
drink
right.
with. It was straightforward, was thematically fine, a lot of fun. Part of my appreciation for this was that it was late in the day, and it gave me 20 minutes of not having to process because I already basically know how to play this game.
I was
so
just about to say this too,
Yeah.
that like it was, I think why I liked it so much was because of how like burned out my brain was, and this was just so simple that
And
it was just actually fun, you know.
Imagine swimming to the point that like you're like, all right, I can't swim anymore. I'm going to drown because I'm stuck underwater, and then you find a little pocket of air.
Yeah, for sure. I think so. You know, getting this game and playing it on a normal basis, I don't know, but I really enjoyed it there for that exact reason. You're right. Custom Hero is the new card crafting game.
Yes,
they did. Mystic Veil was the first card crafting game. Custom Hero is the new one. We didn't really get to play it, but from what we did get to see of it, I thought it was pretty cool.
Sure.
Like I haven't played Mystic Veil, but this one is pretty interesting. Like you get to put different, you know, you've got a character and it's in a card sleeve, and then you're sliding these transparent cards with just like maybe one little image on the right or left or top or bottom that update the character, and then how the game, I can't remember how the game was played, but somehow like we're both gonna end up with these different characters, so like I can add on to something that you've already added on to.
Right.
For a second game in this card crafting line, I thought it was pretty cool.
Sure.
And I'm excited to see what AEG does with the card crafting system, because they're not just sticking with the Mystic Veil game. They're actually using this as a system to use in all kinds of different games.
People talk about the card crafting line series. Where does Gloom fall in?
I don't know. I've never played Gloom.
Okay, so Gloom is this game. Well,
they
we'll
got
talk
the
about
right-
it off air. Gloom to me, at least in my head, is a card crafting game because you play modifiers on pre-existing cards to adjust their point values, which to me is all a card crafting game is. But it's definitely not the same in terms of you can modify all the different parts of the card.
But this is almost
Yeah,
like physically modifying it,
Right.
which is pretty cool. I guess that's what the card crafting is.
Right.
But you're right. There's probably a lot of games that are like, you know, where you're changing what the cards are,
Right.
you know, but just like, oh, I have to remember that this card has this, you know, even Smash Up is that.
To an extent,
you know.
absolutely.
So we also played Lovecraft Letter. We played a round of Lovecraft Letter. Pretty solid for a love letter game.
Do you like Love Letter? Yes. Okay, you'll like this.
And there's actually probably more extra rules added onto this than any other love letter variation.
The thing that I really liked about it was that there were twice as many cards, and you can play 6-7 people.
That's true.
There are times when I want to play Love Letter, but there's a group of 6 about to sit down here. Love Letter, the base Love Letter only holds 4 players, so that's not even something I can bring up.
Yeah, that's very true. I enjoyed Lovecraft Letter. I've read almost every H.P. Lovecraft story, so I'm a big Lovecraft fan.
There you go.
Excited about this one. And the last game we played was Ethnos. This game was probably my favorite game we played of the whole day.
Really?
It was like a set collection area control game.
Yep.
It's exactly what it was. So you're doing this set collection with elves and dwarves and stuff like that, but each of them has a different ability, and that's going to allow you to put these cool little coin-looking things out on this map of this different world. And there's 2 different ways you can set collect, by color or by race.
Correct.
And then you're trying to stack yours up higher than other people's to score different points at different times. I liked that game a lot. and I've heard a lot of I've watched some reviews and stuff, and it's like people are really digging it, and I really liked it. And it was at the end of the day, and it was probably one of the deepest games we learned throughout the day.
Absolutely.
And I was still really enthralled. It was the last thing we played, and I was ready. I mean, I was ready to play it more, you know?
Yeah, I was on the other end. I was burned out, and it's rare for me to say this, but it was to the point that I wanted to go eat and not play games.
I'm totally with you on that.
And being on the verge of that mind state when we sat down at the table, we then played the deepest game of the day.
That's true.
And I just wanted to put a gun to my head.
Yeah, it would have been nice to start one table back.
Yeah, had we started at that table, my opinion of it would probably be completely different. But yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, we got some cool games. Quest of Valeria, got a copy of Quest of Valeria, and Braintopia from Asmodee. So pretty cool stuff. I had a really good time at the event.
I learned a lot. There were some seminars the first day talking to retailers about things to do, not to do in your store, trends that are happening, trends that people think are coming, just, general problem solving. These problems come up in every game store. Here's how you avoid them.
Yeah.
Or here's how you solve them when they come up, because you can't avoid them.
Yeah, for sure.
And that was really useful for me as a guy who is in the process of building and setting up a game room.
Yeah.
There at our sponsor, Game and Movie Traders. So that was all really useful. You ended up sitting out of that. For obvious reason. None of that's relevant to you.
But I got to say, it was a good couple of days, and it was cool to kind of see behind the curtain.
Absolutely.
Like the distributor side of everything,
And
so I learned a lot of stuff I had no idea about.
Right.
And I will say, for all these companies, we probably played the games of theirs that I wouldn't choose to play because they're showing us their marketable games.
Right. They're showing things that are about to come out or things that are just come out and they're trying to get onto shelves, get sold.
Yeah, for sure.
Not
their heaviest stuff.
You have to say it's not their heaviest, it's not their best, it's their newest.
Yeah, for sure. So anyway, that was the PhD Speed Gaming event in Dallas. Had a good time. Thanks, Steve, for taking me along.
You bet, man.
Appreciate it.
Had a blast.
And not quite sure what's coming in the future of Bags and Boards. I'm not sure when the next episode will be, but it will be. This isn't definitely not the last.
This is not the last episode. Here's the thing. I got a new job. If you hear us talk about Game and Movie Traders all the time. We love Game and Movie Traders so much. I have a job there now. I'm going to be running the game room. This makes me a very busy person. As I mentioned, I'm in the process of building and setting up a game room over there. When it's set, we'll definitely be talking about it. There will be ads. Come in and see it, the whole 9 yards. Big spiel. But it makes scheduling to play games with you, Lance, very difficult.
Yeah.
You're a married man. You have a 9 to 5. You've got a kid at home. And by the time that I get off of work, you're about ready to go to bed.
For sure, yeah.
I get off at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night when the store closes. And, you're up at 5:30 in the morning because you're a married man with a kid. And that's what that life is like.
Yeah, for sure.
So we will get episodes out as quickly and as often as we can, but that may not be weekly. In fact, it probably won't be weekly.
Yeah. So what you can do in the meantime, I've been doing this show for 4 years, whether it was with you or with Larry.
Right.
We've got 100+ episodes of Bags and Boards on our SoundCloud page.
We do.
Or if you subscribe to us on iTunes or Stitcher or wherever, check out some of our old episodes and interviews. There's tons of awesome game shows out there. The Dice Tower, Secret Cabal, Rahdo runs through all kinds of awesome shows out there. But definitely keep up with our social media. We'll let you know when new episodes are coming out. Follow us on Twitter at Bags and Boards TX to see when the new episodes are coming out. And SoundCloud.com/Bags and Boards. Check out all of our old stuff too. So that's it for today. Signing off, I'm Lance McFarland.
I'm D. Clark.
And we'll see you guys when we see you.